Some tunnels are old, dark and claustrophobic and are prime locations for ghost stories. Humans have been digging tunnels throughout history, so there are plenty of them waiting to be explored. Whether the people who made them and worked in them were crushed during construction, run over by trains or simply lost their lives for whatever reason, some people have met their end in these dark and cold environments. Tunnels have become part of folklore, fascinating ghost hunters and those interested in the dank and macabre. Here are 4 stories of haunted tunnels in Canada and the States. Number 4, the Screaming Tunnel. The legend of the Screaming Tunnel at Niagara Falls started with a young girl who met an unfortunate end. There are several different versions of the story, but they all agree that the girl lived in a farmhouse to the south of the tunnel. Her house caught fire one night and she fled from the building with her clothes ablaze. She managed to reach the tunnel before collapsing to the ground and dying. Other versions of the story say that she was set alight by a raging father, or that she'd been sexually assaulted and was burned to conceal the evidence. The legend goes that if you stand in the centre of the tunnel, you can hear the screams of a dying girl. The tunnel has become a popular destination for ghost hunters. There are plenty of videos of the tunnel on YouTube, but unfortunately, no one has caught the infamous scream. There is one video with coyotes making high-pitched yelps in the background, which could sound like the screams with the right echo. Maybe that's where the legend of the scream originated, from someone's vivid imagination. Or perhaps the Screaming Tunnel really is haunted. Number 3, the Blue Ghost Tunnel. The tunnel gets its name supposedly from the ghost that haunts it. A paranormal investigator had gotten lost in the Meriden Tunnel in Thorold, Ontario, and claims to have come upon a blue mist. The mist is believed to be the ghost of a man who had died when 2 locomotives crashed at the turn of last century. 2 rail engineers had died when their steam locomotives collided in 1903. One of the engineers was mangled in the boiler and died at the scene. His legs came off when the rescuers tried to pull him free. There was a 3rd casualty when a fireman working on one of the trains fell into the flames and burned 90% of his body. He died a few hours later in hospital. The Blue Ghost Tunnel was structurally unsafe, and because it was so popular, authorities were left with no choice but to brick it up. Number 2, the Sensabaugh Tunnel. This tunnel was constructed in the early 1920s and is known as one of the most famous haunted places in the States. The tunnel is located in the foothills of East Tennessee and is in a state of disrepair, where there are cracks in the cement and graffiti is everywhere. The surface of the tunnel is slippery and wet. It was named after Edward Sensabaugh, who owned the land and lived in the tunnel and was a prominent figure in the district. Sensabaugh had apparently killed his entire family, including a newborn baby, and threw their bodies into the creek within the tunnel. There are stories of motorists who, when driving into the tunnel, may suddenly have engine failure, and when trying to restart the motor, had looked into their rearview mirror and seen Mr. Sensabaugh walking towards the car. Then, as he approaches, their engine will mysteriously start again. Other witnesses claim to have heard Mr. Sensabaugh's footsteps echoing in the tunnel and the baby crying. Number 1, the Moonville Tunnel. The tunnel is situated in the forested hills of Vinton County and was once a booming village. Unfortunately, little remains of Moonville other than a small cemetery and the tunnel. The tunnel was built when a local landowner offered the rail company building tracks towards Cincinnati a great shortcut. He was able to use the tunnel to haul clay and coal, and several settlements soon arose, which included Moonville, which reached a peak population of around 100 in 1870. However, the railway around the tunnel was something of a death trap. Given that it proved to be a major shortcut compared to walking around the valley, Some people died after being hit by trains. The most recent of those deaths came in 1986. Apparently, there are spirits who inhabit the tunnel. Some have seen a shapeless entity, while others report a woman dressed in clothes of an earlier time, where many witnesses report smelling lavender when she passes by. Another ghost is that of a very tall man with a white beard wearing a miner's hat and is dressed in dirty overalls and swings a glowing lantern when one nears the tunnel, and the stories of how this man died varies. One story is that he was a drunk who tried to use the tunnel as a shortcut to get back home. When he heard a train approaching, he waved his lantern, but the train was unable to stop in time. Another story says that when the town was getting desperately low on supplies during the winter, trains were passing through, but they weren't stopping. So the townsfolk hatched a plan to have someone stand in the tunnel and flag down a train with their lamp. Their designated lampman fell asleep and didn't make it out of the tunnel in time. No matter who he was or how he got there, the man waving the lantern is said to be still in the tunnel, trying to flag down passing trains with his lantern. Some reports say that the rail company installed signals at the mouth of the tunnel and told drivers to ignore lights that they saw inside.